Hello folks, this is a follow-up video on burning Quran in Sweden. I needed to clarify a couple of points, a follow-up on that video, so it should be a short one. Number one, I made a mention of the Erdogan Magi's, so I need to elaborate on this one and probably say something about that to clarify the point. There is only one reference, very, very small one-liner or two-liner reference. Now, the Vikings, back then, 1,000 years ago, or longer than that, probably 1,200 years ago, all the way through to about 800 years ago. Within those 400 years ago, they used to, their market, main market, and main interaction like trade and business and so on used to be Muslim Spain and southern France and so on. So they used to come by ship as well as by on land, right? And they interacted with the local. They sold goods and they bought goods, and the goods they purchased and ordered were as big as ships for the Vikings. Some of these ships was like where the large ship with like an extension, top extension, front or back extension, where if the two ships collided or welded in combat, boarding and non-boarding, there was a deck above the opponent's ship. That was ordered from Muslim Spain, and the trees were harvested from Western France. I didn't read that. I just recalled it, and I thought I would make a clarification on it because I know that. Again, the reference is very minuscule. There's not much details afforded to us by those historians, Arab historians, but we know there is a lot of interaction. At one point, there was an invasion, and that didn't work, and so on, by the Vikings to Muslim Spain. Nonetheless, they used to interact a lot, and you should see them tall guys with long hair, scary with big swords, trying to deal with the merchant Arabs, and they're like very rough company and with goods, and the Arabs were like book smart and street smart because for them business, they have been doing business for a long time, and trading between they established the Silk Road and back and forth and so on. So they were very good, but the Vikings weren't to be like taken down easily, and they argued. Eventually deals happened, and some of them stayed. But now the word Erdogan, I'm not sure of this. I do not know where it comes from. I have no clue. I don't recall things to the word Erdogan, unless Scandinavians have reference to that. Now the word Magi is being dubbed as Magi does not necessarily mean that those people in Scandinavia were Magi's. Now in Arabic, Magi's is a Majus. There are known scholars, for example, Ibn Majah, son of Majah or Magi, which is a Persian name, and that Magi was married to an Arab, and then the son called not Ibn so and so of the Arab man, but the son of so and so woman, Majah, whose mother is Majah. He's a well-known scholar, very high-level scholar. He was sought by people from East and West, for learning and so on. So Ibn Majah, and now, unlike unlike what you know about the Persian history is almost entirely different from what has been presented in the West. Persians and Arabs are ancient, right? And they were always entangled linguistically, blood, heritage, traditions, and people think there was no connection between the two until Islam went out of the peninsula and entered Persia and so on. No, folks. There were battles, even one battle between Persians and Arab, even during the time of Muhammad when he was young, right? Before his mission. And even before that, and so on and so forth. So the two people are heavily entangled. Their nature is pretty much the same. And if you look at the Persian dictionary, it's probably 90% Arabic and so on. And so the two nations, those two people are heavily entangled. And during the Achaemenid dynasty, people say they came from Arabian Peninsula, similar to the Sumerian, similar to the Hyksos who built the pyramids, right? So the idea of them being Aryans, them and the Kurds, this is pretty much modern. Yours truly knows, right? Modern, and not much there's not much water under that bridge. There's no credence to Kurds and Persians being Aryans. This whole story of Aryan race and so on is a hoax, folks. It's pretty hoax, big hoax. Let's put it this way. But now, why would the Arabs in that passage, in the historical passage, call them Magi's? You know, those Ardoman Magi's, or the Scandinavians, lower Scandinavia. I think meaningly like northern, northwest Germany and Denmark and the lower part of probably Norway or something like that. You know, those close by Scandinavians, you know, Vikings that are closer to France rather than the farther north Scandinavians. A little bit of difference, but at the end of the day, they're the same people. Because Arabs used that particular term, Majus, or he's Majuse or Magi's. Basically, if they encounter people not knowing their religion or their languages, and then they observe their habits, their predilections, their dispositions, their schools of thoughts and trends, and how they behave toward their marriage, toward their social life, toward their business, toward their language, and sometimes their religion, whether it's pagan religion, or it does not matter. If they resembled certain other religion, they called them that religion as well. And the closest I would say, and that does not necessarily mean that the Scandinavians were Magi's, but their practices as being so liberal in their life about their sexuality, about their family, about their business, about battles, about in all aspects of their lives. Some of it probably resembled Magi's, you know, but now in some extreme situations when Muslim scholars, even amongst each other, if someone is exhibiting a lot of divergence from what they considered as normal life, which is really family, refrain from many other things like alcohol and adultery and many other practices, if they opposed that and they became pretty loose in their lifestyle, they called them infidels, even among each other. You know, a brother would probably see his brother doing something like that, and he would call him you infidel. You know, like I myself, when I was young, I wasn't extremely lax, you know, but at one point during argumentations, my own grandmother and my own mother used to call me infidel, right? So much for that. I am more believer than they are. But nonetheless, and they used the Magi. Oh, that is Majus, right? So it does not necessarily mean that the religion of Magi was widespread or preeminent in Scandinavia back then, or even now. Now, of course, we know Protestantism materialized good and evil, and you know, black and white, and you know, demiurge, and so on. So some of these concepts are possibly, not certainly, possibly borrowed from the East, or not borrowed from the East, have been influenced by the East. Meaningly, you know, you got like travels, a lot of people, you know, you think Scandinavia and Germanic people, those Norse people, that they were pretty much isolated, like to their area in the world and so on. No, folks, I know for certain. Vikings in their trades and in their travels and so on, they reached as far as Baghdad in their tradings and in their discoveries and so on and so forth. They didn't write much. Well, they did, and someday in the future in Scandinavia you will find their traces, right? So anyways, but nothing that is widespread, nothing that is like readily available for everyone. Some of them actually stayed in Spain and stayed in you know, in the countries, lower countries closer to the Mediterranean. Some of them did. You know about that, the Normans and whatnot, right? But then I'm talking about something else earlier than that. I'm talking about Spain and so on. So the word Magi's, I say it, Ardoman Magi's, there is a small reference, no more nor less, that describes them as such. But then I needed to clarify that point. It does not necessarily mean they're of the Magi's religion, although now it seems like there is some kind of affinity between them and the Yazidis and the Mazdakism, you know, Ahura Mazda, and so on and so forth, you know, in their lifestyle. I don't know. I mean, I haven't been to all the neighborhoods, say in Norway or Sweden or Berlin or here and there. I mean, I've been in Germany and Holland, like very short span of time, I don't know, a month maybe altogether. But that's not enough to show you what's going on. However, in Germany, it seems to be obvious that this is the religion that is there, similar to Freemasonry, if you will, or Masonry. You know, like I think there is some kind of a similarity between the two. But now be careful. The origins of these and the documented religion, as we know of, is much of a late development. The religion itself was not like that before. Although the idea of evil and good and evil, it's even dated in the Quran. You can see it, you know, that Allah speaks to us in the Quran and say, He will test you by evil and good. And He put evil before good, right? We shall وَنَبْلُوَكُمْ بِالشَّرِّ وَالْخَيْرِ فِتْنَةً وَإِلَيْنَا تُرْجَعُونَ. He says, and we shall test you and seduce you, or put you into trials of evil and good, and then you back to us you shall return, right? Oh, that's very complex. You know, you can't take Quran on you. Few people read it at the surface, and few people really go deep in it. But nonetheless, that's not the subject. So that's point number one. I'm gonna clarify that. Some people may take it at face value as they were Magi's. That's not the case, folks. We don't know, let's put it this way, what their religion was, but there is similarity in their pagan practices. And the only reference to their practices, which we know today, was by an Arab called Ahmad ibn Fadlan, the engineer. And he's roughly portrayed in the 13th Warrior, that movie. And it's true, he's a traveler, and his letters are online. I think you can search for them and find them. That's the only thing we know about them, and that indicates pagan religions, but it doesn't indicate structured Mazdakism or structured Mazda or structured Magi's or Zoroaster or anything else. And then you get like someone like Nietzsche, although sprach Zarathustra, and you know, like das spoke Zarathustra. That's very late thinking, folks. As if the West in general, and I'm gonna stay on the surface here. I'm not gonna go delve deep into the details or what I know about it, but as if they wanted to adapt or helped by someone or some people from the East, you know, like caramel and butter and so on. And I am partly Arab, right? Partly white, but there are those who are relative of the Arabs, supposedly, right? They wrote all that stuff in the West and then induced the adherence to what's called good and evil and Mazdakism and Zoroaster and Magi's and so on and so forth. Believe me, folks, much of that is late development, not early development. If you go back then and observe the life and the practices and the rituals of those people, wasn't like what you're being told it was. Nonetheless, you know, that's what is going on in the West now, in Germany and so on. So back again, that does not mean you're going to take my word for it and say, oh, we are Magi's. No, you're not Magi's. Could have been some kind of mission back then into the West, like Northwestern Europe, and like a missionary teaching the Magi's religion. So possible, but that's highly unlikely. Because the Magi's religion was not structured something that they sent missionary on daily basis, or it wasn't a religion that was active in missionaries. You know, missionaries were not active. There were missionaries, you know, but if they're your neighbor, same city and so on. So it was not such an active religion, just like that of Islam and Christianity, and these are the only two religions that really are vehement on spreading, right? You know, like spreading the religion is one of their main foundations, really. But not Judaism, not Hinduism, although Hinduism accept converts, you know, new adherents, but they're not active that they go and do that like proactively. Mormons are like that as well. They're very active. But now, okay, so that clarifies number one. Number two, in burning the Quran, I made it sound like I'm oblivious to it. No, it's not like that. You know, it burns my heart to see someone doing that to the Holy Book that I believe in. Although I should not pay attention to it or glorify the act, but it indicates sickness. I mean, what is it that? And here's the point. In my religion of Sunni Islam, it's forbidden to burn other people's book or call their gods names. You know, like like loosen profanity against their gods. and so on and so forth. It's forbidden, folks. It is definitely forbidden to burn their books, even when Islam is so has a very polemic and harsh approach toward like violating certain violations uh, such as drinking alcohol or taking usury and so on and so forth. Others can practice it. So if a Christian in society, or Christian, or anyone else in your Muslim society which completely forbids alcohol, and they drink alcohol in their house, and you know about that, it's not your business. It's their business. You cannot impose that rule on them, because that rule is per belief, right? So now, I want to talk to those who burn the Quran. What is it about that book that makes you so angry that you want to burn it, right? Are there good ideas in it that you don't like? Are there fake ideas on it that are not so authentic that makes you hate it so much? I suggest, if your approach to it is based on historical credence or factual evidence in it, or whatever it is, just go to all those libraries and burn them, because many of them are fiction, many of them are straightforward bad, some of it are porn, some of it, if your approach to this particular book as being bad in one or more of its aspects, then you have whole airs of books to burn, right? But what is it making you that is making you angry about it? I can't see anyone. I go to the library, I read books online, I download from here and there, and so on and so forth. And some books are just plain ugly, right? But I don't care, it's not gonna change my life and make me go out on the street and say, here's a book that I'm gonna burn that. Probably nobody knows what that book is, or care what that book is, or if they heard about it, they have so much problems on their hands, or they have like to go to work and handle their daily affairs and so on, that they don't care if you burn it or not. But what is it that making you dedicate your time and life and so on to burning the book? It didn't just happen in Sweden. It happened in Florida the other day. No, a few years back. It happened here and there. And you got people who wants to. Some people don't burn it. Some people just basically call it names and so on. And it turns out that they want some fame. I know this TV host show in America who called it violent book, and oh boy, you have no idea about violent books and how they exist in the world. And one day, I'm going to give you an example. I didn't read this myself. I was told about this, that there was a British parliamentarian, either a prime minister or something, and he, in one of the sessions, I think that's like either in the 1800s or 1700s or something like that. His name is Gladstone. Gladstone, I heard this even before I learned English when I was 18. I was back home in Syria, and I heard it then and I heard it later. In one of the sessions, he brought a copy of the Quran. Either he had it, I don't know, he brought it from India, or he had it, or something like that. Now, don't quote the exact details, but what happened has happened. And I didn't read it myself. Someone narrated the anecdote and the event to me. And he said, that we should remove this book and destroy it, or something of the sort, right? He was like very much antagonist to this Quran, right? And one of the parliamentarians, went up to it, either tore it up and threw it down and trampled on it and so on and so on. And Gladstone turned to him, he says, it's not like that, you idiot. What I meant to say, Gladstone, is that he wanted to remove it from the heart of the Muslims. That's far easier said than done, my friends. Here is a fact. I'm not going to explain it in details for you. This new world started from one seed in its all good aspects: science, knowledge, justice, universities, the rights of the individual, the sanctity of the family and individuals, the separation of a king, wherever it is, or an emperor owned everything, even the budget of all the gold of the country was in his palace. That's no longer the case. There's an accountant on the treasury house now, and all this world that we live in now was started by that book that sprang out like a big gigantic tree. This is the world we live in, of course, with some modifications. a lot of modifications, but the main theme is the main learning, the human lives, everything was established by that man and his companions and later generations. This world has been built by that book, basic and simple. So you can't take it out, you can't take it on. There's so much depth in it, folks, that it's impossible to fathom that a man who was illiterate, would speak something like that. I can bring you an evidence time and again about how its very own detractors and opponents are so mind-boggled by it, they start attributing superstition to the man, right? Especially about space. Here's about space. You all know that Einstein supposedly discovered something called, or theorized about something called folding space to travel in it, like wormholes. He called it wormholes. You fold space, and then that makes the distance between the two folded ends short, and then you travel between the two and then unfold it again. At the first glance, it tells you like, what is this guy talking about, right? But there's something like that in the Quran. And if I didn't know better, Muhammad was there like 1400 years before this man, Einstein, was born, right? And the Quran is in our hands, wherever it is. It's really the same from that time until now. And it says, and I quote, يوم نطوي السماء كطي السجل للكتب كما خلقنا أول خلق نعيده وعدا علينا إنا كنا صادقين. What does that say? I'm going to translate it for you. And when we fold the space or heavens or sama, which gives the word samt and then zenith, right? Like samt is really zenith, the vertical point in the sky. When we fold heavens, space or sama, just like a scribe folds his book, right? That's in the Quran. Just like we started creation, we shall recycle it. A promise upon us, that's Allah or God speaking, we shall be doing it, right? Recycling creation, folding space, I don't know. Could it be a coincidence? I don't think so, folks. Trust me. Those people who are stirring troubles in Sweden and here and there, they're very cheap people. I don't want to say all of them. Maybe some of them are misled. Maybe some of them are simple enough to not know what they're doing and. But believe me, as a Sunni Muslim, it hurts me to see the Quran being burned for whatever reason. I don't know. Nor will I ever lend it credence or whatever it is. But those who are stirring trouble time and again and burning cars and so on, believe me, these are not Sunnis. Have a nice day, my friends.